Sohail's grandfather's father was a well-known Kabir of that time. People from the area would come to him for herbal treatments, spiritual healing, and various other remedies. His Kabiraji was highly regarded in the area and neighboring regions. Sohail has asked not to mention the name of his grandfather's father, so it will not be revealed here. To practice Kabiraji, one has to do a lot, including fighting against spirits, and one must be very cautious in their actions, as not being careful can lead to great harm. Many cursed spirits were very angry with Sohail's grandfather's father. He had made enemies of many powerful spirits, but he also had some good spirits who listened to him and helped people. Before his death, Sohail's grandfather's father taught Sohail's grandfather many things, so that the Kabiraji knowledge could be passed down to future generations. Sohail's grandfather's name was Idris Ali. From a young age, he was brave and independent. He was never afraid of any task, and didn't like to back down from anything. Seeing his nature, Idris Ali's father taught him a lot about Kabiraji. After his father passed away from old age, Idris Ali began his own work in Kabiraji. As his work was beneficial, people came to him for solutions to their problems. This continued for some time. Idris Ali had 2 sons and 4 daughters. Sohail's mother was the second daughter. Idris Ali had a large piece of land not far from his house, where he dug a pond surrounded by raised earth for fish farming. Every year, he made a good profit from the fish farming. His pond had a lot of fish, such as rui, katla, and mrigal, as well as other local species. These were fish for farming. When the incident happened, it was around the years 1975 to 1980, Idris Ali noticed that the fish in his pond were decreasing day by day. He became a little worried, thinking perhaps the fish were being stolen. He shared this concern with his wife, son, and others. After hearing this, Idris Ali's wife suggested, "Let's guard the pond." Idris Ali replied, "Tomorrow, my eldest son and I will watch over the pond." And so, they decided to do it. The next evening, after having their dinner, Idris Ali and his eldest son set out to guard the pond, carrying a flashlight and a machete. The machete was for protection, as during the night, animals like snakes could attack unexpectedly, and the machete was needed to deal with such threats. Moreover, there could also be attacks from thieves, and thieves were often armed. For these reasons, carrying a machete was common. When going out at night, they watched the pond for several days, but nothing unusual happened. However, after a few days, Idris Ali noticed the fish were still disappearing. Being a Kabir he could sense paranormal activity, so he decided to talk to his wife about it. She said, "Tonight, I will go with you to guard the pond and see what is happening." At that time, Sohail's mother was around 6 or 7 years old and was aware of this event. That night, Idris Ali, his wife, and his eldest son finished their dinner and headed toward the pond. They took a 3-battery flashlight and a machete. They arrived at the pond, which was isolated, with no houses around. The night was very dark, and they were guarding the pond. Then, Idris Ali's son noticed a faint sound coming from the water. It was a quiet sound, and that night there was moonlight. Sohail's uncle, who was Idris Ali's son, looked around the pond, and his eyes fixed on one corner of the pond. In the moonlight, he saw a woman in a white sari, sitting with her back to the pond, as though doing something. Idris Ali's son, Sohail's uncle, pointed this out to his father, saying, "Look, look, what is that?" Idris Ali, being a Kabir immediately realized what it could be. He quickly told his wife and son, "No one should go near that. Let's stay here and watch to see who is stealing the fish. Don't act hastily. We need to see what's going on." At that moment, Idris Ali's wife and son didn't fully understand that the situation was not normal. They thought that perhaps Idris Ali was just being cautious as usual, but they didn't sense anything particularly strange about the situation at that point. Meanwhile, Idris Ali's son, Sohail's uncle, upon seeing the woman and hearing the noise from the water, realized she was taking the fish from the water and eating them. Seeing this, he became so angry and frustrated that he forgot everything his father had warned him about. In a fit of rage, he rushed toward the figure of the woman with the machete in his hand. Idris Ali, seeing his son running, shouted, "Stop, son, stop. Don't go over there. Come back. Don't go near her." But his son, filled with anger and frustration, ignored his father's pleas and continued running. As he got closer to the woman, What happened next was shocking. The woman's long hair, which had spread out on the ground for quite a distance, wasn't noticed by Soul's uncle earlier. He hadn't realized that her hair was spread out across the ground. When he got closer to the figure, the woman used her long hair like a snake, coiling it around Soul's uncle and violently throwing him into the air with great force. Normally, hair doesn't have any nerve endings, so it can't be used in this way, but the figure managed to use her hair to bind him and fling him with immense force to the ground. Seeing this, Adrisali's wife lost her composure. Upon hearing her son scream in pain, she immediately rushed toward him. As soon as the figure threw him down, she let out a loud scream. Oh God, it's impossible for any mother to stay calm upon hearing such a cry from their child. This drove Adrisali's wife to run toward the scene. By the time she reached the spot, the figure was gone, vanishing into thin air. Adrisali arrived soon after and found his son lying on the ground, blood pouring from his neck, his arms and legs broken, and there was no sound or pulse. He was dead. Can any parent accept such a fate for their child? Adrisali stood like a stone beside his son's lifeless body, while his wife wept uncontrollably. After a while, Adrisali told his wife, "Let's take the body home. We have to prepare for the funeral. This was our destiny. What can we do?" Adrisali and his wife brought their son's body back home and called the rest of the family. Upon seeing the tragic death of their brother, the other children of Adrisali were devastated and broke into tears. As the morning came, neighbors began gathering, and by midday, news of the incident spread throughout the area. The people in the village began whispering that Adrisali, being a Kabir-I, had made many powerful spirits angry, and it was one of these spirits who had killed his son in revenge. The body was buried, and despite the tragedy, Adrisali did not file any police report. He knew exactly what had caused the incident. Despite everything that had happened, Adrisali did not shed a single tear. The other members of the household, his wife and children, cried, but not Adrisali. His grief was hidden deep within him, and though it appeared that he was unaffected, he was seething with anger and frustration. 7 days after the death of his son, Adrisali went to a small hill to gather neem trees. He had temporarily stopped practicing Kabiraji after his son's death, as he was unable to cope with the pain of losing his child, though he never showed it to anyone. On the 7th day, Adrisali called his wife and said, "I know you are suffering a lot because of our son's death. I am also in pain, but I will not show it, and I don't want anyone to see it. I will do what I have to do. Tonight, I am going to the pond. The one who killed my son in front of me will not go unpunished. I will give him a severe punishment." Adrisali's wife replied, "Whatever loss has happened, has already happened. Our beloved son is gone. His death was written by Allah. It has happened, and please don't do anything more about it. I don't want to lose anyone else. If you punish someone now, will our child come back? That's why there's no need to escalate these matters further." Then Adris says to his wife, "Don't come to explain these things to me. I know everything very well. I will understand what needs to be done. You stay quiet." This is how he would make his wife understand. That night, after finishing dinner, Adrisali took the wood from the hill neem tree, the wood he had prepared, and with a strong bottle, he set out towards the pond. Before leaving, he told his wife, "Do not fall asleep until I return. Stay awake." Then Adrisali headed towards the pond. After some time, he reached the edge of the pond. On one side of the pond, there was a bush-like area where he had placed the 7 pieces of wood from the hill neem tree, arranged in a circular shape, half buried in the ground, with the bottle's mouth open and placed in the center. Adrisali lay quietly inside the bush. The arrangement was such that the 7 pieces of wood were buried in a circular pattern, with the bottle in the middle. He remained silent inside the bush. A lot of time passed, and there was no sound. He couldn't tell what time it was. Suddenly, the sound of water movement began. He realized that the killers of his child had arrived. He understood that the group of female demons had come to the pond to catch fish. He had already guessed that it wasn't just one. At that time, one had come, but many others had also been involved in such incidents. This was something Adrisali later understood. That's why he had buried the 7 pieces of wood in a circular pattern. Adrisali, sitting quietly inside the bush, began to apply all the knowledge of witchcraft he had learned in his life. A lot of time passed like this. Suddenly, Adrisali saw that the pieces of wood buried in the ground were rising one by one and entering the bottle on their own. One by one, all 7 pieces of wood entered the bottle. After that, Adrisali came out of the bush, sealed the bottle, and took it home. Upon returning home, Adrisali called out to his wife. His wife opened the door immediately because her husband had instructed her not to sleep until he returned. She hadn't slept. Adrisali showed her the bottle and said, "Look, there are 7 pieces of wood inside this bottle, and within these pieces of wood are 7 female demons. I cannot say for sure which one of them is the killer of my child, but I am certain that one of these 7 is the murderer of my child." Hearing this, Adrisali's wife said, "Why torment the other 6 for the sake of one? Let them go." Then Adrisali said, "I will leave this bottle open in the yard. When the Fajr call to prayer is given, you will seal the bottle and bring it inside. Don't worry, the guilty demon will not be able to escape from this bottle. The others will leave the bottle before Fajr. The one who remains with the wood will be the guilty demon, trapped. She will remain imprisoned within the wood, unable to escape. This is her only punishment. She will live like this for the rest of her life. I could have killed her, but I won't. She will remain imprisoned, suffering slowly. This is her punishment." Then Adrisali's wife said, "All right, I will bring the bottle inside when the Fajr call to prayer is given." So, after leaving the bottle open in the yard, they went inside and locked the door. After some time, when the Fajr call to prayer was given, Adrisali's wife went to the yard and saw that only 1 piece of wood remained inside the bottle, and the other 6 pieces had disappeared. She sealed the bottle and brought it to Adrisali. After receiving the bottle, Adrisali dug a small hole inside his house. Then, after some thought, he dug the hole deeper and buried the bottle there. Days passed like this. At various times, in his dreams, the family of the demon would tell Adrisali to release their family member, or else they would cause greater harm to his family. Each time, Adrisali would respond in his dreams, "I have punished her for her actions. She killed my child in front of me. I will never forgive her, nor will I release her, and I will not kill her myself. She will remain imprisoned, suffering slowly." And in his dreams, he would tell them, "If you can do something, go ahead. If you can, take her away." This went on for several years. By then, it was around 1985. Suhail's mother had gotten married, but back then, many people got married at a young age, especially girls. So, she had also gotten married. Adrisali would often go to a distant market on market days to shop. By the time he finished shopping and returned, it would be late at night. The roads were still unpaved back then. A little rain would turn the village roads muddy. One day, after buying 3 hilsa fish and other groceries, it was quite late when he set out for home. Since the road was muddy, he carried the hilsa fish, groceries, and his shoes in a basket, lifting his lunge slightly as he walked. The sky was cloudy, but occasionally the moonlight made the surroundings visible. As he walked, he entered his village, and it would take him about 8 to 10 minutes to reach his house. While walking, Adrisali reached a bale tree. Suddenly, a raw bale fruit fell from the tree right in front of him. At first, he thought it had fallen on its own, but when he stepped forward, another bale fruit fell in front of him. This time, Adrisali was confused. When he stepped forward again, another bale fruit fell. This time, Adrisali became very irritated, and his anger reached a severe level. The bale tree then shook violently, and an invisible force from the tree spoke in a terrifying voice. "Hey Adrisali, aren't you the witch doctor? Are you scared of falling bale fruits? You've buried our sister in the ground. I won't let you off easily. I'll ruin your family." Adrisali heard all this, but he didn't put down the basket of groceries and fish from his head. Instead, he bent down, picked up the 3 bale fruits, and placed them in the basket on his head. He then said to the invisible force, "You're making so much noise, threatening me so much. You have so much power, right? Stay here. I'll take my grocery basket home, and then we'll see who has more strength. I'll fight you." The demon from the tree laughed maniacally and said, "Go, take your groceries home. Today we'll see who has more power. If you want to fight me, come, I'm ready." Adrisali started walking towards his house. The demon called out from behind, "Leave 1 hilsa fish for me, witch doctor. It's been so long since I've eaten hilsa. Adrisali didn't look back and walked straight home. Upon reaching home, he woke up his wife and handed her the grocery basket. He told her, "This and this happened on the way. Now I will go to it and see what it can do to me." His wife repeatedly tried to stop him, saying, "No, don't go, don't go." But Adrisali was a stubborn and very brave man. Then, he is also a skilled witch doctor. Taking the 3 bale fruits from the basket, he starts walking towards the bale tree and tells his wife, "If I don't return, no one should go looking for me at night." Saying this, he walks towards the bale tree. After some time, he reaches the base of the tree. Seeing Adrisali, the terrifying demon from the tree shouts, "Oh witch doctor, you truly have a lot of courage. You've come to fight me, and that too at night. I thought you wouldn't return home, just giving me empty threats. You really are something." Then Adrisali says, "These 3 raw bale fruits in my hand. The fight will continue until they ripen. When they burst, the fight will end." Adrisali then begins to apply various forms of witchcraft he knows. There was a ditch-like area by the road with shallow water but knee-deep mud. Suddenly, the terrifying demon leaps onto Adrisali. Adrisali fights back with all his strength, using his witchcraft to ensure the demon cannot harm him despite its full power. The fight continues like this. At one point, the demon jumps into the ditch with Adrisali, and they struggle there. Meanwhile, 2 men returning from the market hear the commotion near the bale tree. They shine their flashlight towards the bushes and see a man covered in mud, wrestling with something. The man rises and falls repeatedly. They call out, "Who's there?" Adrisali responds, "It's me, Adrisali. Turn off the light and leave. You don't need to stay here." The men, thinking Adrisali is performing some witchcraft, leave. Adrisali continues to fight, applying his witchcraft against the demon. The demon, unable to harm Adrisali despite its efforts, grows furious. It has long nails, sharp teeth, and a hairy body. The fight drags on for hours. Adrisali, though protected by his witchcraft and Allah's mercy, grows weak and exhausted from fighting in the mud all night. Suddenly, the 3 raw bale fruits burst one after another with a loud crack. Shortly after, the Fajr call to prayer echoes from a distant mosque. The demon, using all its strength, throws Adrisali out of the ditch onto the road, causing severe pain in his neck and leaving it permanently bent. As it leaves, the demon says, "If I get the chance, I'll harm your descendants in ways you can't imagine. Today, this is all I could do. Your luck saved you." Adrisali slowly walks back home. Upon returning, he wakes his wife, who breaks down in tears seeing his condition. Covered in mud with his neck bent, she bathes him, massages him with oil, and puts him to bed. Adrisali remains ill for 7 days but eventually recovers, though his neck remains bent for the rest of his life. Despite this, he continues to practice witchcraft and helps many people. The demons still visit him in dreams, threatening to harm his family if he doesn't release their sister. But Adrisali, unable to forget his child's death, never frees the demonas. Before his death, Adrisali teaches his son-in-law, Suhail's father, enough witchcraft to protect his children. He also imparts some protective knowledge to each of his children. A few days before his death, Adrisali releases many of the yin he had captured over the years, advising them to do good and not harm anyone. On the day before his death, he asks his wife to unwrap a water lily leaf tied with thread. Inside, she finds a black smoke that escapes through the window. He explains, "I've released those I could, but I'll never release my child's murderer." His wife asks why he made her do it, and he replies, "I trapped them in such a way that only someone else could free them. That's why I had you do it. I hope they'll reform." That afternoon, Adrisali passes away due to old age. Many people come to pay their respects. The night after his death, both his wife and daughter dream of a terrifying figure threatening revenge for the imprisoned demonas. They become extra cautious, keeping a close watch on their family. A few years later, Suhail is born. When Suhail is 4 months old, his mother leaves him on a small bench in the yard while she cooks. Suddenly, a white horse appears and begins licking Suhail's ears. Alarmed, she screams, drawing the attention of neighbors. When Suhail's mother saw the condition he was in, she ran to him, and the horse ran towards the garden at the back of Soul's house. Soul's mother reached him and saw that the lower part of his ear was completely straightened and attached. Normally, a person's earlobe, which we call the earlobe, hangs down a little, but in Soul's case, the earlobe was completely flattened, and the horse had licked it until it was fully blended with the jaw. Soul's face had turned red like blood. His mother hugged him tightly and began crying uncontrollably. She then remembered the nightmare she had, where she saw that evil spirit. When Soul's father came home, the situation was explained to him. He said, "Don't worry, I will take care of it." Soul's father tried to make some protective talismans and charms, based on the methods he had learned from his father-in-law, Adrisali, and attempted to perform some rituals. Days went by, and Soul didn't experience any further problems. He was sent to school. One day, during a hot afternoon, Soul went to school. At lunchtime, he went near a pond next to the school. There was a huge arecanut garden near the pond. Soul approached the pond and saw a woman sitting in one corner, doing something. The woman's back was visible, and her front was facing the pond. Soul asked, "And what are you doing in the pond?" The woman didn't respond. Soul asked again, "And what are you doing in the pond?" But the woman remained silent. Suddenly, the woman stood up and started walking towards the garden. Soul followed her, walking behind her. At that moment, one of Soul's teachers noticed Soul walking towards the garden. The teacher observed that Soul was walking alone, but couldn't see anyone in front of him. Soul seemed to be walking alone, seeing something that no one else could. The teacher, accompanied by a few students, began calling Soul from behind and tried to stop him. But Soul seemed unaware of the calls and walked as if he was hypnotized, focused on something ahead. The teacher, realizing something strange was happening, ran after Soul with the other students to stop him. When the teacher reached Soul and touched him, Soul seemed to come back to his senses. He asked, "Sir, how did I get here?" The teacher responded, "You were walking ahead, looking at something. Why were you walking in that direction?" Soul then told the teacher about what he had seen near the pond, about the woman and walking behind her to the garden. Several students who were with the teacher also listened to the story. Later, Soul's mother, after hearing about the incident, immediately took Soul and his sister back home and locked the door. When Soul's father arrived home, he was told about the strange events. He then went to the spirit, saying, "I know you took my fish."
I want them back, not a single one should be missing. The spirit laughed maniacally and responded in a terrifying voice, "You want your fish back? I have never heard of such a thing. I took your fish, and now I will enjoy them. Let's see how you can get them back from me." So Hell's father, still calm, replied, "I am asking you nicely, return my fish. Those fish are my livelihood." The spirit continued laughing, and the conversation went on. As Sohel's father spoke, the spirit took all the fish, but Sohel's father remained firm, demanding the return of his fish. Then the spirit said, "I have taken all your fish, and now I will enjoy them. Let's see how you can take them from me." Sohel's father responded, "I know how to take my fish back." He then took some soil and began drawing a circle around him, placing his fish trap inside the circle. He stripped off most of his clothes and sat inside the circle, applying various spiritual rituals and charms he had learned from his father-in-law, Idris Ali. The spirit laughed at him and mocked him, but Sohel's father continued his rituals. Time passed, and after some time, Sohel's father looked up and saw the fish hanging in the air. One by one, they started falling into the trap. Sohel's father, with the trap in hand, walked back home, carrying the fish. When he reached home, he called his wife. She opened the door, and he handed her the trap with all the fish inside. He said, "Here, all the fish are safe, but I won't come inside just yet. I'll wait until the Fajr call to prayer before I enter. If I go in now, I might face trouble, and it could affect all of us. As he spoke, the spirit, furious that the fish were taken from it, stomped its foot on a palm tree. The tree fell with a deafening crash, shaking the entire area like an earthquake. The terrifying sound of the tree crashing down frightened both Sohel's mother and father. The ground trembled, and they were both left in fear from the force of the fall. Sohel's father reassured Sohel's mother, saying, "The fish couldn't be eaten, so it was returned. It's the first time anyone has returned a fish after taking it. This is not something that demons do, but he had to return it. That's why he's very angry. Soon, the Fajr call to prayer will be given. Once it is, I will take a bath, go inside, and after praying, I will sleep." So, he did exactly that. Time passed, and one after another, Sohel's family faced problems. Sohel's uncle, grandmother, and relatives were suffering from various paranormal issues. Everything together made their lives miserable. The fear and an unknown terror kept haunting them, and it seemed like someone had suffered a severe loss. This continued until the end of 2020, when the coronavirus had completely paralyzed Bangladesh. During the day, people were rarely seen on the streets, and at night, it was even more difficult to find anyone. One night, Sohel was riding his bike from Khulna to Rampal. When he came near Chowki Bazaar, the bike ran out of fuel. It was about 1 a.m., and no shops were open, and the fuel pump was far away. Sohel had to push his bike to a nearby house and ask the residents for help. He explained his situation, saying, "I'll leave the bike here and pick it up tomorrow morning. I'll bring fuel in a drum and start the bike." The family was hesitant to keep the bike at first, thinking it might have been stolen, but after Sohel introduced himself, they were reassured and understood. They let him leave the bike there and Sohel continued his journey. The residents insisted, "Don't go so late, stay with us, there's no need to go now." But Sohel refused and started walking. There was complete silence on the road, and no one was in sight. Sohel, using his phone's flashlight, continued walking. It was around 2:30 a.m. when Sohel suddenly noticed a white horse galloping past him, disappearing into the distance. Sohel, brave like his father and grandfather, tried to brush it off as his imagination. But after walking a few steps, the same white horse appeared again, crossing him and running the other way. Now, Sohel realized something wasn't right. Sohel had a habit of smoking, so he lit a cigarette and kept walking. As he walked further, he kept lighting more cigarettes. By the time it was 3 a.m., his cigarette pack was almost finished. Just then, his phone suddenly turned off. He had checked the battery, and it had been at 50%, but it had turned off on its own, making him anxious. He continued walking, now in complete darkness. Not far ahead, Sohel noticed two people standing near the road. Seeing them gave him a little courage. He approached them and asked, "What are you doing at this hour?" The two men replied, "Our house is nearby." "Where are you from?" Sohel explained, "I have a problem. My phone is dead, and I'm scared to go home in this dark." He asked, "Could you help me?" The two men stared at Sohel in silence, but Sohel couldn't see their faces clearly. When the moonlight revealed their faces, Sohel was horrified. The men had no eyes, no nose, and no mouth, just a small hole where their faces should have been. They were speaking through these holes. Terrified, Sohel ran off, hearing a grotesque laugh behind him as if it was right next to his ear. The sound stopped suddenly, and Sohel slowed down and continued walking. A little further, Sohel noticed something descending from a palm tree. It was a small, dwarf-like figure moving like a squirrel, shaking the large palm tree. This sight was too abnormal for Sohel to process. His body froze in fear. He quickly began to run again, and after a while, he reached his village. Near his village, there was an old crematorium, now unused but with many palm trees. As he passed by, Sohel felt a heavy feeling. Suddenly, in the middle of the road, he saw a headless body, engulfed in flames. The body began laughing eerily, despite having no head. Sohel was paralyzed with fear, thinking it might be his last day. He collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The next morning, some people on their way to pray found Sohel lying there and took him home. They splashed water on his face, and he regained consciousness. Sohel then told his mother everything that had happened. She realized that it was the work of the Demonis family. Sohel was treated with special water and recovered by Allah's mercy. However, for 9 days, he suffered from a high fever. One night, Sohel's mother had a nightmare where large, terrifying beings warned her, "We almost buried your son alive, but for some reason, we couldn't. How long can you protect him? Now is the time to let go of our sister, or everyone will face severe consequences. Your husband is no longer alive to protect you. Who will protect you now? Think carefully about what you will do." The demoness, trapped under the house where Sohel's grandfather's old tin house stood, was buried there, and a building was constructed above it in 2021. During the construction, Sohel's family received warnings and threats in their dreams. Despite their fears, no one backed down. The demoness remains trapped